Hey guys, okay, so this is by far the most common question I've gotten in any TA session, and anyone who's emailed me or asked me questions is all about how to use Anki for medical school. And yeah, there's a lot of resources out there and there's a lot of ways to use Anki, so this is by no means saying you have to do it this way or this is the exact perfect way to do it. But for me, this is what has worked, and so I figured I would share in a video exactly how I use Anki and the way that I've found has worked for me and the basics, because I know that there's quite a learning curve to Anki, and I really feel that it's super pivotal for retention and remembering all the things that we have to remember as medical students. First things first, if you don't know how to download Anki in general, super easy. You're just going to go to Google, literally just type in Anki download, and you'll see it right here, apps Anki web. You just literally click Anki, click download for Mac or PC, whatever platform that you're using. Just make sure to download it appropriately for yours. So once we have downloaded Anki and we're ready to go, your Anki is going to look something similar to this, although I have a fancy background installed here. You won't have that. You're going to have a plain old background, so ignore that feature. But what you will see is this one single default deck here with 0 due cards and 0 new cards. So the first thing that we're going to need to do is we're going to need to download our deck that we're going to use. The first thing that I want to mention here specifically is if you are completely brand new to Anki, you're going to want to start with the Zanki deck. So that's the first thing that we're going to download here. Now I have, as you can see on this right hand side here, I've already downloaded the decks that I plan on talking about in this video, but let me quickly show you how to download these decks. So the place that you're going to want to go for anything Anki related for our purposes is this Reddit page here, the Medical School Anki Lounge. It's r/medical school Anki is how you get to it. And again, this is something you can just Google search. It'll literally pop right up. It's a super popular thread. So when you get to this Medical School Anki Lounge area, you can scroll down, and then on the right hand side here it says step 1, and then you'll see a bunch of different decks that you can use. Once you get more familiar with like how this works, you can feel free to peruse and try these decks, whatever you think you need to help you. Here you'll see even anatomy. There's a bunch of different types of decks here made for anatomy. There's also, if you peruse this, there's a bunch of questions that are usually answered by people. So if you need help or you even want to ask a question yourself, this is just a great place to come for some extra help. Okay, so we're scrolling down, and on the right side we see the original Zanki, so that's what we're going to click on. And I've already pulled up the thread that will pop up here. Zanki original. Now the way to download this deck is you have to scroll down. So you're going to see this comment here first that says Zanki step 1. And then there's 2 different versions of it. For our first year of medical school, we're only going to need to focus on the physiology and pathology here, but don't do this link. This link I've found doesn't actually work. But there's one here by deleted, and it says, is this the newest legit version? So you can click on that, and then that is going to this page here, Zanki physiology and pathology. So this is where you're finally going to go to download the deck. So you can scroll down, literally just click download, and it will start to download. Once our download is finished, you will see something that looks like this in your downloads folder if you have a Mac, or do it appropriately on Windows if you have Windows. But it's literally as easy as just double clicking on it to open it, and Anki will automatically process it and place it into the downloads folder. If you see This info panel, don't worry about it. That's just letting you know how many cards and well, notes that it's found. And so you can see there's about 13,000. There we go. You'll see, looks just like this now. It'll say Zanki step decks. You'll see I now have 20 here in the new category. If I expand this by hitting the plus button, then you'll see all of the different categories here. So again, if you are brand new to Anki and you are just first learning, this is your first step here, is to go through Zanki. All of your cards are organized in a really easy, simplest format. It's the simplest way to do things. This is how I recommend that you start when you're just starting to learn about Anki. So since we are talking about Zanki first, I want to show you how I would first start using Zanki for classes. So if we're talking about Med 2, we know that our first goal that we're going to learn about under the cardiovascular module is going to be related to the mediastinum. We are going to be learning a lot about anatomy to begin with for Med 2. The way to find cards, you could just go here and click here and just start studying this tab if you wanted to. But for me, what I have found works best is to actually reorganize these cards by goal. So in order to do that, I'm going to click on Browse. In our Browse tab, I'm going to click on Decks over here in the left-hand panel. I'm going to click on any single card, any card here, and then I'm going to hit Command A, and this is going to be Control A for Windows users. Now I'm going to hit Command J or Control J for Windows users. So what I just did is I have suspended every single card in this deck. Every single card. The yellow cards here that you see, if they are in yellow, it means it's suspended. If it is in black, that means that it is unsuspended. So what does suspended mean? Suspended just means that this card will no longer show up. It's almost like it's not even there. It's a card that you are not currently studying. If I click and I go back to our original deck, our Zanki step decks, you can see now the new card area is showing 0 and it is blacked out. And that is because we have no cards that are unsuspended, no cards that are available to use for studying. So the reason that we did this is because we don't need all of these cards yet. We don't need them all. So I'm going to be unsuspending the cards that we do need. And there's a couple ways that we can find cards that we do need. The first way is to go back to our cardiophysiology, embryo, and anatomy section here in our Zanki deck. And if I click one card, I can use the down arrow on the keyboard and I can look through these cards to see which ones are going to fit with goal 1, the mediastinum, the anatomy of the thorax. So I can continue down, see if there's any cards here that I need. There's 730 cards in this particular deck, so honestly that's quite a few, and it's going to take quite a while to actually get through all of these. So a better way is to, within this deck, I want to search for something specific. So to search for something specific in this deck, first thing that needs to be there is this phrase here in the search bar. This is going to allow me to search just through this deck, so make sure that you don't delete this. Now I'm going to put "and" in the box along with it, and then I'm going to type in what I want to search. So I'm going to add a quotation, and then I'm going to search for mediastinum. Okay, so you can see no cards popped up. And honestly, for me, this is the limitation of the Zanki deck, is that there's not really a whole lot of cards to choose from, especially when we're talking about anatomy and that sorts. That's why you would consider downloading an anatomy deck that's more specific to learning these types of things rather than the Zanki deck itself. I don't think Zanki is super great for anatomy, which is probably why we're showing 0 cards here. In this circumstance, if we can't find any cards that are related to our goal, then what I would do is probably just make my own cards based on that lecture for Zanki. And honestly, that's why I still recommend the Zanki deck, is because one, Zanki is great for physiology purposes, but two, it allows you to start learning how to make cards on your own. And in this case, I would basically just be making cards related to anatomy of the mediastinum. So basically like the boundaries of the thorax, the different areas within the thorax, and things like that. I'm going to click out of the Browse tab here, and I'm going to go back to our Zanki step deck area. I'm actually going to go down and click Create Deck, and I'm going to name this Cardio Class Notes. Click OK. I'm going to click and drag that under Zanki Cardiovascular, and just like that, we have now our own brand new deck named for the cards that we're going to make for in class. So to make our own cards, I'll just click Cardio Class Notes, I'll click Add, and then here you'll get this little pop-up where you'll see text and extra, and then tags barred down at the bottom. So I am actually going to add a tag, and this is going to be crucial in me explaining to you how I use Anki to study for class. So I'm actually going to add my own tag here, and I'm going to call it Cardio Goal 1. Make sure that there are no spaces in your tags here. That's going to be really important, because anytime you add a space, that's going to create a new tag. So now my tags technically for this card would be Cardio Goal 1, create a new tag. So we don't want that. We just want Cardio Goal 1. And since Cardio Goal 1 is anatomy, I'm also going to add, see this cardio anatomy tag here that's already built into Zanki? I'm going to go ahead and use that as well, just so that way we remember that this goal is basically based on anatomy. Now let's go ahead and create our own card. So anatomy of the mediastinum. Now what we want to do is create a close, and a close just means that we are going to be basically missing words within the sentence here. I'm going to click this button right here with the 3 dots, and you can see now it added this close card right here where mediastinum is actually going to be missing. And in the extra portion, I'm going to put also Cardio Goal 1, and here in this section what I might do is add in a screenshot from the lecture notes. For a Mac, this is super easy. You can take a screenshot from your computer and then click and drag the screenshot right here. Here I have a screenshot. This one is actually from a PowerPoint that I created. It is clearly not about the mediastinum, but that was just quickly to show you how to do it. You take your screenshot, then you just click and drag it into the card, and it is that simple. Another way that you can do it, if maybe this will work better for Windows. I am not a Windows user, so I don't really know much about Windows, but you can go to the paperclip button, and it'll attach a picture for you that you wanted to be uploaded, and that will also insert a picture for you. For those who use Windows, I'm sure that might be a way to do it if clicking and dragging isn't an option for you. Okay, so we made our card, and now I'm going to click Add. And then let's go take a look at what that card looks like. So here, this is the deck that we created, Cardio Class Notes. I'm going to click Study Now. And here you go. Here is what this looks like. The whole point of Anki for me is to start making connections. So if I am making a card, I try to include as much relevant information that we've learned as possible to that card. And by making cards, it is a form of active learning, because you're having to create questions yourself that make sense, that are simple, but that also connect various ideas with one another. So I find that making your own cards is very helpful, but I will caution you to not go over 10 to 20 per lecture, because you already have this pre-made deck that you're using, and you don't want to end up with too many cards that becomes overwhelming and you're repeating a certain topic too many times. Remember that with our CAS exams, it is for Med 2, it's going to be an entire section on cardio and respiratory. There's a lot to learn there. With Med 1, you're looking at foundations. You're looking at a whole lot of topics there. So you don't want to be too detailed, but you do want to make sure that you're hitting points that you need to retain. And that's the point of Anki, is retention. And I find it very, very useful, especially when we get to cast 3. That is something that is cumulative. I find that I very rarely have to go back to the previous modules because I've used Anki and I've been able to retain that information that we learned from module 1 through all the modules, and it makes studying for the last exam a lot less stressful. Okay, so now you may be asking, why did we have to tag that card that we made? Why did we tag it? And this is the beauty of Anki, and the thing that I find so very helpful is that you can actually create your own filtered decks aside from the ones that are already here and already made. So here are the basic steps for how I start tackling each goal. First step, you want to watch a summary video before the lecture. So that summary video should be less than 20 minutes long, and it should give you a good idea of what that topic is going to look like for you. The second thing that I do is go to lecture, annotate the PowerPoint slides, and just make sure that you're paying attention. Pay attention to specifically concepts that you think are difficult or that you might struggle with. The third thing you're going to do is you're going to unsuspend Anki cards. Also, at this point, you'd want to make your own Anki cards based on the lecture on things that you found are probably really important to remember. And that might also be called high yield topics. High yield topics are just things that you're pretty sure will show up on an exam, are most likely to be tested on, and are testable material, which is why I say stick to 10 to 20, definitely no more than 20 cards per lecture, because there's a lot of testable material here. But we need to narrow it down to what we think is the most important and concepts that we can use to learn other concepts through. After lecture, I'm going to want to go through those Anki cards. Why? Because immediately you're going to want to start retaining this information. So let's say that I have a bunch of Anki cards here that are unsuspended, maybe from multiple different categories. Click Browse. Let's say that there is a card here. I like this card here, and I think that it might be relevant. I'm going to hit Command J or Control J on Windows, and I'm going to unsuspend it. I'm also going to tag it. Remember when we created our card, we created that Cardio Goal 1 tag. Well, now I'm going to tag this one here as well, because this one I find is also relevant. So I'm going to go down here to Tags. I'm going to hit space, and then I'm going to add a tag here. So that tag is going to be the exact same one that we already did, Cardio Goal 1. There's also another way to add a tag besides just adding it in down here. And that shortcut command for your keyboard is going to be Shift Command A or Shift Control A if you are on Windows. And now you can see here it says enter tags to add, and then you can go ahead and just search for your tag that you made, Cardio Goal 1, and then add it, and it will automatically add it in for you. Okay, so I'm going to close out of Browse here. Now you can see, look, we have one card from Cardio Class Notes, and we have one card from Cardio Physiology, Embryology, and Anatomy here. If we just want to study those specific cards for class, after class to review, we're going to want to create a filtered deck. So to do that, we're going to go to Tools, Create Filtered Deck. And this screen right here is going to pop up where it says the name, the filter, and the options. So I'm going to rename this to Cardio Goal 1. Here it's okay if you use spaces. And where it says search, I'm actually going to change this to our tag that we created. So I'm going to type in quotation, tag, colon, and then I'm going to make sure I use that exact same tag that we created and end it with a quotation. So for us, that was Cardio Goal 1. Now let's say you can't remember this tag. The other option is to click search and to search for the tag itself. So you can come here and you can just go here and you can search it, or if you go to your left hand box over here to tags, you can go all the way down until you get to the tag that you made, Cardio Goal 1, and then you can always just copy it and then paste it back into your filtered deck if you need to. Limit to 100 cards. I hope you don't have more than 100 cards for a specific category, but if you do, just make sure that you're limiting this to however many cards are actually in that deck. So if you have 200 cards, just make sure that you filtered it for 200 cards, so that way you're not missing any cards when you're restudying this goal that you've already went over. I usually leave reschedule cards based on my answers in this deck checked, just so that way our study time is counted towards our overall study time. And I'll explain what that means a little bit later. I don't need to enable a second filter for this one. If you check it, it'll pop up filter 2 where you can add, if you wanted to do it from a specific deck, you can add that here if you need to, but for this particular filtered deck, we don't need that. Also going to pick random here, so this just means how they're selecting the cards. It doesn't mean a whole lot because we're going to be going through all of these cards anyway, but I just like to keep it at random just for the sake of making sure that we're not studying cards in a particular order. So now I'm going to go down here and I'm going to click build, and then you're going to see right here in this blue color, now it is cardio goal 1, and we have 2 cards that are new, which is correct, right? Because we created a card and then we selected a card specifically that are related to cardio goal 1. And now if you look at cardio class notes, you see 0, and you look at cardio physiology, embryology, anatomy, and you see 0. That's because what the filtered deck does is pull those cards. It pulls them from the decks that they were at, and it puts them in its own deck here. So how I use this to study is, once I have all of the cards tagged, please make sure that you remember to tag each card that you pull for that goal. Once I have tagged the cards, I pull them out using the filtered deck option, and then I study them. I study them that same day that we did that goal, that same day that I went over that goal. Once I'm done studying them, so let's go ahead and study these really quick. Anatomy of the good, and this one good. Once I'm done studying, you'll see this, congratulations, you finished this deck. Once I'm done studying them, I delete this deck. And you're gonna probably be asking me, well, why? We just created it, why would you delete it? I'm deleting it because we no longer need it. We only created this filtered deck as a temporary thing to make sure that we reviewed the lecture for that day, to make sure we reviewed that goal for that day. But we don't want to keep it in a filtered deck, because on your CAS exams, you're not going to be having your questions goal-based. It's going to be random. It's going to be scattered. So when you continue to review these cards, you're going to want it also to be scattered. You don't want it to be perfectly under a specific category. But if you ever do need to filter out the deck again, you've made those tags. You've made the tags so that way you don't have to worry about having to struggle to find these cards again if you need to study these particular cards again. So I'm not going to click delete because I also want to take this time to point something out. These skulls that you see right here, for you they're going to be a gear icon. So when you click this gear icon and you go to options, you're going to see down here in the bottom right corner this option to rebuild. If for some reason the first time that you go through these cards and you pull cards, you miss one, you can always click on rebuild and it will add in those cards again, and as well as any new cards that you have tagged. We haven't tagged anymore, but I guess let's go ahead and tag one just so I can show you. I'm going to unsuspend this card here. So same thing, Command J or Control J for Windows. I'm going to go down here to tags. I'm going to add our tag for Cardio Goal 1 back in. I'm going to close out of Browse. And now you'll see here under Cardio, Physiology, Embryology, and Anatomy, a 1. Well, I know this card pertains to Cardio Goal 1, our filtered deck, so I'm going to go to the gear icon, click Options, and click Rebuild. And now you'll see here that it has adjusted and it is now under New, because now we've pulled that card from its original deck into our filtered deck. But now I'm going to show you what happens when we delete this deck. So I'm going to go ahead and delete the deck. And now you can see that they're spaced back out again. So you don't see those due cards anymore because they are rescheduled. They're rescheduled to be studied at a later date. If I minimize Zanki step decks, you'll see that there's the one new card. This is how you're going to study. You're going to study your cards by just clicking on Zanki step decks. So the reason why we are doing this is because, again, we don't want to be studying anything particular. This is for retention purposes, and you're going to be learning a lot. So you want to retain all of the information and not in specific ways, because then you're just memorizing goal 1, goal 2, goal 3, but you're not memorizing all of these cards together in a unified way. So this is how you're always going to be studying the other cards once you've already completed your specific filtered deck. This is the only thing that you should be clicking on to use to study. You should not be studying deck based, because there's going to be a lot of cards that you find that are not just in one deck or two decks. You might take a card from cardiophysiology, but then you might take a card from dermatology. You might take a card from GI. Who knows? There's a lot of cards here. There's over 16,000 cards. That's why you want to study just using this Zanki step deck rather than each individual deck. I want to just briefly go through settings with you, because the settings that we currently have, they're just not it. Okay, so we need to be using better settings that are going to help our memory retention rather than disrupt it. Okay, so I have pulled up, this is my own personal Anki deck that I've been studying. Using this, I'm going to show you exactly which settings that we're going to use. I am a little behind on cards, so that's why I have 707 due. I have definitely taken a break. You can see that based on my calendar, but we're not going to talk about it. So again, I'm going to go ahead and click on this gear icon, and I'm going to go back to options. And this is what you're going to see pull up here. Now, all of my decks use the default option, and this is just to make sure that we're not messing around with decks in particular, since again, we're only going to be using our main deck to study from. Under this tab, new cards here, you'll see steps in minutes. So I have these three numbers here, 15, 1440, and 4320. Now, the importance of this is because this is going to be your, again, hard and good buttons. That's the steps for those particular buttons. And you want to make sure that they're not too close together, but that they're not too far. So basically, this is 15 minutes, 12 hours, and 1 day. And that is the very first step that I have for each button. This is after trial and error, trying to figure out what steps work for me, and I would recommend you starting with this. Start with these 3 steps, and then you can always alter them or change them later, depending if you need longer intervals or shorter intervals. For order, I show my new cards in a random order. I also recommend that you do this. Again, we want to randomize this as much as possible. We don't want order. Order is not a good thing when we're trying to retain information, because we don't want to retain information in a particular order. New cards per day. For me, that is 100. For you, that might look like 50. That might look like 20. It just depends on what your individual skill level and attention span really is. I would probably start out with maybe 50, but honestly, this is really going to depend on how many lectures that you have in a day. If you have 4 lectures in one day, you might have 4 goals and you might have 200 cards. So it's up to you to decide, are you going to go through all 200 cards that day, or do you only want to do maybe 100, or do you only want to do maybe 50? It just really depends on how many lectures that you have that day and what you think that you can handle. For me, that's 100. I stop at 100 new cards per day. I don't want to overwhelm myself, and I find that 100 is a pretty good amount for that. Your graduating interval, for me, that's 6 days. My easy interval, that's for the easy button, is 8 days. My starting ease is at 250%. And my berry related new cards until next day is checked. That's going to make sure that if you have 2 closed cards that are the same, that you only see one of them rather than both of them. Again, randomization is really important here. For reviews, make sure this is set to 9999. We do not want to mess with Anki's algorithm. That is super important not to mess with Anki's algorithm. It is there for a reason and it works if you use it right. My easy bonus is at 140. My interval modifier is at 100. My maximum interval is at 210 days, and my hard interval is at 120%. Also, berry related reviews is also checked for me. I know a lot of people that leave this unchecked though, for the purpose of, again, not messing with Anki's algorithm. For me, I find if I do it the next day, it's fine and it's okay for me. Lapses. So for me, this is going to be 20 minutes and 1,440 minutes. This is if you get a card wrong that you've previously gotten right. This is what Anki is going to change your steps to. The new interval is 10%, minimum interval 3 days, leech threshold is at 8 days, and tag only. So this is if you continue to get a card wrong that you had previously gotten right. If you get it wrong 8 times, it will tag that card, and that means that you need to pay a little bit more attention to why you keep getting this card wrong after you had gotten it right previously. For general, ignore answer times longer than 180 seconds. This doesn't super matter. This is just to see how fast you're answering cards, and it'll stop for me at 180 seconds. That means if while I'm doing Anki, I get up to get a drink or go to the bathroom, after 180 seconds has passed, it's no longer going to have that timer there. It's no longer going to keep track of how long it's taking me to answer cards. I keep all of these 3 things unchecked, but these are completely optional and up to you. Doesn't matter one way or another whether you like it or not. It's just personal preference. Description doesn't super matter at all. If you go to Anki and then preferences for a Mac, again, I believe it's under tools and preferences for Windows, but for me it's under Anki and preferences, and then you'll see this pop up. So for basic, obviously you can see what I have here for my settings. Show play buttons on cards with audio, interrupt current audio when answering. I love night mode. It's the only thing that I use. When adding, default to current deck. Just some basic things here. For scheduling, show next review time above answer, show remaining card count, show learning cards with larger steps before review. All of these are checked for me. Also, I make sure to show my new cards after reviews. For me, I don't want to see the new cards until I've completed all of my reviews for that day. The next day starts at 6 hours past midnight. That means that my time that Anki is going to consider it the next day at 6 a.m. every day. And that's because I usually do Anki pretty late at night. I don't want it to be midnight and then have to start all my reviews over again, because now Anki is saying it's the next day, you have these reviews that are due today. So I want to make sure I get all of the day's Anki cards done, and I do that by making my time 6 a.m. that the new day starts. Learn ahead limit, I keep at 0. I think this is really important. Again, not to mess with Anki's algorithm. Learn ahead means that if you have a card that's due in 10 minutes and you have 5 minutes set as your learn ahead limit, that means that instead of at 10 minutes, you can start learning that card at 5 minutes, because you are basically subtracting that 5 minutes. I don't want to mess with Anki's algorithm, so I make sure to set this to 0. I see the card when Anki says to see the card. Network, again, and backups, all this stuff is personal preference that you can mess around with at a later time. I want to talk about what add-ons that you should add and how to add these add-ons. For add-ons, you're going to go to Tools, Add-ons. For me, these are the add-ons that I currently have and I am using. So the custom background image and gear icon, this is obviously for the custom background. I like to make my own keyboard shortcuts, so that's why I have this. But I just really want to say which ones I think are actually important. For me, that's going to be true retention. I think this one is really important. I'm going to show you how to get this add-on. Symbols, I think that's important. Spelling police, I think that's important. I like my heat map. The heat map is what you see right here that shows me exactly which days I'm missing and how many cards I've done per day. Review buttons are colored, just your, again, hard, good, and easy buttons. I make mine colored. Image occlusion, I think this is important for making cards, especially for anatomy purposes. And then extended tag, I find that that is pretty important as well. The rest of these, you can just find add-ons kind of as you go. To use these add-ons, go ahead and just click Get Add-ons. And you'll have this window that pops up. You can click Browse Add-ons, and it's going to take you to the Anki page that has all of the add-ons here that you can go through. So one of the ones that I said was like button colors is a really good one. So I'll click button colors. Nothing like super important, but if that's something that you want, you're going to go and find this number right here, and you're going to copy this number. Copy. And this is where you put in the code. Remember when I clicked on Get Add-ons? Yep, you're just going to go ahead and paste that code right here, and then you'll click OK. Now you will have to restart your Anki. It says right here, changes will take effect when Anki is restarted. So you'll have to restart your Anki to see that add-on appear. But once you restart Anki, then you'll see your add-on here in white. These ones that are here in gray are ones that I'm not currently using. They are disabled, but these ones in white are all the ones that I am currently using. If you have any other questions about these add-ons, just let me know. Again, not all of these ones that I have on here are important for beginners, but feel free to peruse them and use them as you get more comfortable with Anki. Okay, so I've talked about Zanki, which is, again, the deck that I recommend that you start with. But I want to talk about the deck that I use now. And I just find that this deck has so many useful cards. Just the way that it was created and the way that you update it and everything about it is just my style and the way that I like to study. So this is why I use AnKing. I just think it's way more advanced, way better cards, way more, it's just well thought out, well designed, and I really like it. So to download the AnKing deck, we're going to basically do the same thing that we did for Zanki. We're going to go to the Medical School Anki Lounge, scroll down, and on the right hand side you're going to see here where it says AnKing Step 1 V9 and Step 2 V4. We're going to click that link. That link is going to take us here where it says AnKing Overhaul, and then again we're going to scroll down to the comments because this is where we're going to go find the actual deck to download. Once we get to the comment section here, you'll see this particular user here, and you'll see where it says to download AnKing Step 1, V9, Step 2, V4. You can download it right here. This is through Mega though. I would recommend doing it through the Google Drive one. So this particular one right here, because you don't want to have to download Mega. If you need to download Mega or you already have it downloaded, then go ahead and use this, but I use the Google Drive one and I download it that way. I recommend downloading both. I know we're only preparing for Step 1, but I still recommend downloading both because even the Step 2 decks, they have very important cards that I find I end up using quite a bit. Over here I have already downloaded my AnKing step deck and I'm just going to go ahead and click it. Double click. It's going to populate into my Anki. And you'll see the same file information that pops up. Just click close, not super important, and here you go. I'm going to click the expand button and now you can see this AnKing deck also includes Zanki, which is again another reason why I love it. It's really easy to just incorporate AnKing even if you've already have Zanki. If you already have Zanki, just do the exact same thing. Just click AnKing Step 1 V9 and it's going to use your current Zanki step decks within AnKing. It's great. It's wonderful. Really easy, really simple. You don't have to worry about it. Just go ahead and download the AnKing and your Zanki step deck will incorporate nicely into your new cards that you've also added. The biggest difference between AnKing and Zanki are these tags. So right here on the left hand bar, you see tags. And if you expand this one, AK Step 1 V9, look at all of these tags that you have. There's a whole lot more cards. There's over 32,000 cards. And the best part is that they're organized. They're organized by these tags. So for me, it's a lot easier to find specific tags. Now, if you remember, I mentioned to watch a summary video before class. We're talking about cardio here. We're talking about cardio anatomy, cardiac anatomy. So if you see here, there's a Boards and Beyond video that's called cardiac anatomy. And for me, I would be unsuspending the majority of these cards because I watched this video before class. I watched cardiac anatomy before class from Boards and Beyond. So I'm going to unsuspend all of these cards. Once you download your deck, remember to go click on decks, click on a card, click on Command A for Mac or Control A for Windows, click Command J for Mac, Control J for Windows, and you're going to see that you have now suspended all of your cards. They are all in yellow, and again, we're doing this because we don't need all of these cards yet. We are going to be unsuspending cards based on our need for them. So I'm going to go ahead and hit Command A after I clicked on a card here. You can see they're all highlighted now. Command J, and now they're all unsuspended. And here's the really important part. If you haven't paid attention, pay attention right here, because this is how we're going to use AnKing to study. These cards are all still selected. I haven't unselected them. I'm going to add a tag to all of these cards right now, and I'm doing that by using the keyboard shortcut Shift Command A. And now you'll see this pops up and it says enter tags to add, and I'm going to go ahead and I'm going to enter my own tag related to which goal that these cards fall into. Cardio goal 1, okay. I have watched my summary video. I have unsuspended any and all cards pertaining to goal 1. I've gone to class. I've watched the lecture. I've annotated the PowerPoint. I've gotten home, and now I'm ready to study goal 1. Well, luckily, when I unsuspended all of my relevant cards and I've created all of my relevant cards, now I'm going to create a filtered deck so I can study those cards. Tools. Create filtered deck. Naming this filtered deck Cardio Goal 1. Under my search bar, I forgot what tag I made. Okay, I'm going to click Search. And then I'm going to go to the tags and try and find that tag that I created. Oh look, it's right here. Cardio Goal 1. Okay, perfect. Now I can just click this up here, copy, close out of browse, and then I'm just going to go ahead and paste it right there. Nice and easy, that way I don't have to worry about it. Limit to 100 cards, that sounds good for the size of my deck. Build. And there we go. Now you can even see that they were pulled from our main deck here. You no longer see 39 new cards here, but you do see it in our filtered deck, and I'm ready to study those goals for today. I want to continue this idea of tagging cards. I know this is probably the hardest part to kind of get used to doing. So I'm going to leave this filtered deck here, but now I want to talk about goal 2, which I believe is the pericardium for Med 2s. Alright, so I need to find cards related to the pericardium. There are a few different ways that you can search this. Okay, so the first thing I'm going to do is just go to our search bar and I'm going to just type in pericardium, enter. And then look at how many cards that we have. So basically when you search pericardium here in the search bar, you can see that there are 47 cards that have the word pericardium somewhere in these cards. Somewhere in this card you're gonna find pericardium written. So see here, it's in the extra section. The right ventricle cannot expand into the pericardium. let's see. I think that this card is important. Acute pericarditis is defined as inflammation of the pericardium. I think this is important. This is relevant to our lecture. I'm going to hit Command J and unsuspend this card. Don't forget, we have to add our tag here. So I'm going to do Shift Command A, and I'm going to add my new tag for cardio goal 2. And I'm going to hit OK. Now let's go ahead and keep searching here. Okay, there's more about pericarditis right here. Okay, cool. I'm going to unsuspend this card. Command J. You see it's unsuspended because it's no longer yellow. And now don't forget to add your tag. Shift Command A, enter your tag to add cardio goal. Oh look, it already kind of populated for me. Cardio goal 2. Perfect. Okay. Great, I found my tags that I needed. I just want to double check one more thing. I'm going to go over here to this sidebar filter and I'm going to type in pericardium right here. Oh, here we go. I started to type pericardium, but it looks like there's this tag right here called pericardial disease. And that's what this sidebar up here does. This sidebar up here is searching your tags for you. So it's not going to be the individual card. It's going to be something that has this name in its tag title. So all of these could very possibly be relevant. You got to just kind of search through them and see which ones you think are relevant to you. This is only 75 cards, so it's really not too hard to go through all of these cards really quick and see if there's any that are relevant to what we're learning about. But let's say that this is 150 cards. We just don't have time for that. So what I'm going to actually do right now is I'm going to go ahead and click Command A, and I'm going to unsuspend all of these cards. Command J. They're all unsuspended. I'm going to go ahead and also tag these, even though they might not all be relevant. So I'm going to tag all of these cards with Shift Command A, Cardio Goal 2. Perfect. Okay. Exit Browse. I'm going to go ahead and create my filtered deck now. Tools, Create Filtered Deck. Cardio Goal 2. Search. Oh, there it is. Cardio Goal 2. I'm going to copy this. Close out of Browse. I'm going to paste it right here in the filter bar. Perfect. Build. All right, Cardio Goal 2. Let's study this. I don't think I remember learning this. I don't think this one's really important. Let's see the answer. Fibrinous pericarditis. Yep, we haven't learned about this yet. I know now that this card is not important, so I'm going to go over here to More, and I'm going to suspend this note because this one is not relevant, and so I don't need it yet. So I'm going to suspend it. So now you may be thinking, well, okay, great. Now I've suspended it, but that tag is still there because we had tagged that card, and I know that because it's in our filtered deck. So let's go take care of that right now. I'm going to go back to Browse. I'm going to click on our Cardio Goal 2 tag, and I'm going to look for any of them that I had suspended here. Oh, look at that, right here. I suspended these 2 cards. So that must mean that they're not important. So I'm going to go ahead and I'm going to remove a tag. So I right click right here, remove tags, and the command for this, the shortcut is Shift Command R if you'd like to do it that way. And then I'm going to make sure that I delete that tag that we had used because we don't need that tag on these cards. Delete. And then if I click Cardio Goal 2 again, now look, you're not going to see that card anymore. So if you're dealing with a lot of cards and you just don't have time to individually search for each card, this is absolutely an option for you, is to go ahead and just add all of them and then suspend them as you realize you don't need them. The most important thing, I really can't stress this enough, for this style of learning, please make sure you remember to tag your cards. If you don't and you forget, it's going to be really difficult to filter out these cards. You're still going to have them in your main AnKing deck. They're still going to be there, So you'll still be able to learn them, but you're not going to be able to review them after class the way that you might have wanted to. And if you don't like to do it this way, if you don't like to review your Anki cards right after class, then you don't need to worry about tagging the cards, because all of the ones that you unsuspend are going to end up being under this AnKing heading, and you can just use the AnKing deck itself to study from. Now I'm going to go to the gear icon and I'm going to delete both of these filtered decks. So now you can see, look, all of the cards got placed back in the proper decks where they came from, and now I can just use my AnKing heading here to study from. Now if you do make a mistake, if you do choose to tag your cards and you forget to tag a card, the thing that I would suggest that you do is go over here to card state. I'm going to expand card state. I'm going to click on suspended. Now I'm going to click on this heading bar and I'm going to put a minus sign right in front of is suspended before the quotation. I'm going to click enter. And now you're going to see I have 113 cards that I have here that I have unsuspended. That's the opposite of suspended, obviously, but I'm telling you that because then you can just go through any cards that you unsuspended and then you can add your tags to them if you had forgotten. It's going to be kind of tedious because you'll probably have a lot of cards by that time that you'll have unsuspended, but if you need to and you're in a pinch and you're in a bind and you forget to tag a card, this is how you can do it. So I just want to interject right here and mention I am not an Anki pro. I have just found ways to use Anki that work for me, and I'm sharing these tips to you so that way hopefully it will help you and help you incorporate Anki into your study habits. If you have more questions that I haven't answered during this video, go ahead and go visit the AnKing YouTube page. This is how I learned how to use Anki. This is how I find new add-ons that I'd like to try out and use. And I find that his videos are incredibly helpful and they are incredibly easy to follow. So the playlist I recommend that you go to, especially if you are just beginning here, is going to be Why Anki? Start Here. And then also Anki 101 Basic Skills. These two playlists here are the best way to start and learn exactly how to use Anki and things that I don't have time to explain in this video. Visit the AnKing on YouTube, literally youtube.com/theAnKing, and this is your resource. This is going to be your best friend, and he's great. He's wonderful. So go ahead and visit that page. Okay guys, that's it. That's all that I have for this video. If you have any other questions or you guys want me to make another video on something particular related to Anki, please let me know. This has just been the one that I've gotten the most questions on is tagging, untagging, creating filtered decks, and using Anki period. So I just wanted to give you a few brief tips on hopefully how to help. That way you can watch this video as much as you need, or you can review this video as much as you need. And I really hope that it helps you understand how I utilize Anki and how you can utilize Anki, so that way your retention is 1,000 times better than maybe previously. Using this method, I didn't actually have to review any of the previous modules when it came to the cumulative test. I had used Anki continuously throughout, and it allowed me to focus on the new material rather than have to review old material. So I hope this has been helpful for you guys. If it has, again, please let me know. If you need any other videos made or anything else that I can help you with Anki, email me, whatever you guys need. I'm here for you, and I really hope this helped everyone.